This movie fooled everyone. And the truth was right in front of you the whole time. Everyone thinks they understood Fight Club the moment Tyler Durden disappeared. They didn't. Because what you think the movie is about, a twist about split personality, a story about masculinity and rebellion.
Not the contents of your wallet. You're not your fucking khakis.
That's the surface. That's what the film hands you, so you stop looking deeper. The real secret is structural. It's psychological. And it was sitting in front of you the entire time, disguised as style. Let's go back to the beginning. A nameless man. An insomniac. A corporate drone who furnishes his apartment from IKEA catalogs and measures his identity by what he owns. He can't sleep. He can't feel. He sits in meetings and imagines the bolts failing on the plane he's flying in. He is completely, totally hollow. Then he meets Tyler Durden on a flight home. Charismatic, dangerous, completely free. Everything the narrator secretly believes a man should be.
Oxygen gets you high.
And here's the first thing most people miss. The film never draws attention to how naturally Tyler slots into the narrator's life. No awkward introductions, no real explanation of how they ended up talking. Tyler just appears and fits perfectly, immediately, like he was already there waiting. The narrator's apartment burns down shortly after. We later learn the narrator caused it himself, as Tyler, destroying his own carefully constructed identity without consciously knowing it. But in the moment, the film presents it as misfortune that conveniently hands him exactly the life he'd been fantasizing about. You didn't question any of that, because the film doesn't want you to yet. Now here's the confirmed foundation everything else is built on. Tyler Durden is not real. He is a dissociated identity created by the narrator's own mind, a projection of everything the narrator suppressed.
What? I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
Desired, and was too afraid to become. The narrator has been living as two people simultaneously without knowing it. Every conversation with Tyler, every plan Tyler made, every act of violence and liberation Tyler performed, the narrator was there, as Tyler, the whole time. The film confirms this. That's not interpretation. But here's what people miss after the reveal lands. They treat it as a twist about one man having two personalities. It's not about that at all. It's about what happens when the thing you created to save you becomes the thing trying to destroy you. Let's talk about insomnia, because the film uses it as more than just backstory. The narrator can't sleep from the very beginning. His doctor refuses medication and tells him to visit a testicular cancer support group if he wants to see real suffering. He goes, and something extraordinary happens. He cries. He sleeps. For the first time in months, he actually feels something. Why does that work when nothing else does? One compelling reading is that in that support group, he's allowed to be something his entire constructed life refuses to permit. Weak, vulnerable, unfinished. He buries his face in Bob's chest, and the performance of strength he maintains every other waking hour completely dissolves. Under this reading,
I found freedom.
the insomnia isn't simply a symptom of stress or sleeplessness. It can be read as a symptom of the performance itself, the exhausting, unrelenting effort of maintaining an identity built entirely from external signals. He cannot sleep because sleeping requires dropping the mask, and the mask never comes off. Not at work, not in his apartment surrounded by catalog furniture that tells him who he is, not anywhere. Tyler Durden might be understood as what happens when that mask finally cracks under the weight of maintaining itself. Here's a layer the film plants so carefully that almost nobody catches it on first watch. Tyler appears on screen before he's supposed to exist. Not metaphorically, literally. Several frames of Tyler Durden are spliced into the film during the narrator's insomniac haze. Single frames, gone before your conscious mind registers them. A face in a crowd, a figure in a hallway. Fincher confirmed these frames were placed deliberately. Whether you read them as literal proof that Tyler was always leaking through the narrator's consciousness, or simply as a stylistic device signaling the film's themes early, either way, you were never meant to catch them consciously on first watch. You were meant to feel them. A vague unease, a sense that something is slightly wrong with reality, without knowing why. That unease is the whole movie operating on you below the surface. Now let's talk about Marla. Marla Singer functions as one of the film's key emotional anchors, and is probably its most consistently underanalyzed character. She's the narrator's chaos, his guilt, a destabilizing force that cuts through the film's constructed masculine world in a way nothing else quite manages. And here's what makes that interesting. Tyler can seemingly dominate men without much resistance. He builds an entire organization out of redirected rage and male submission.
Marla, you liar! You big tourist!
But Marla, messy, real, emotionally present Marla, introduces a different kind of instability into that system. Because Marla sees through the performance. She doesn't want Tyler Durden. She keeps reaching toward whoever is actually underneath the constructed identity. And what the film suggests, not confirms, but suggests, is that this reaching creates a fault line in the narrator's internal architecture. The part of him that became Tyler did so partly to avoid exactly this kind of intimacy. Vulnerability. Being genuinely known by another person. Those things register in the system as dangerous. Marla keeps threatening to make them unavoidable. This is arguably why her relationship with the narrator carries more emotional weight than the Fight Club itself. She's the one element Tyler's world can't fully absorb or neutralize, and the film implies, without spelling it out, that this matters enormously to how things end. Let's talk about what Fight Club is actually for. On the surface, it's men hitting each other in basements, a rejection of consumerism and corporate emasculation, a primal reclamation of feeling in a world that has anesthetized everyone into comfortable numbness. And yes, the film earns that reading. It's valid. But watch what actually happens to the men in Fight Club across the film's second act. They don't become more free. They become more obedient. They trade the authority of their bosses and their credit scores for the authority of Tyler Durden. They go from following IKEA catalogs to following rules about not talking about Fight Club. They swap one set of instructions for another. The only thing that changed is who's giving the orders and how exciting the orders feel. Project Mayhem is where this becomes impossible to ignore. These men, who came to Fight Club to reclaim individual identity, shave their heads, dress identically, follow commands without question, and aren't even allowed to speak unless spoken to. The liberation was never real. It was just a more seductive cage. And the narrator is the only one who eventually sees it. Because the narrator built the cage himself, and somewhere underneath the Tyler persona, he still knows it. Here's the part of the film that deserves far more attention than it usually gets.
What is wrong with you?
What did you just call me? Say my name.
Tyler Durden! Tyler Durden, you fucking freak! What?
When the narrator discovers that he and Tyler are the same person, that everything Tyler did, he did, his first instinct isn't straightforward horror. It's shock that moves into something that looks a lot like grief. He mourns Tyler. Even knowing Tyler was trying to blow up buildings and erase civilization's financial records and take destruction to a scale that would hurt real people. There's a loss there the narrator can't immediately rationalize away. That reaction is worth sitting with, because it implies that Tyler wasn't simply a defense mechanism or a symptom of illness. Tyler can be read as the narrator's most uncensored self-expression. Reckless, yes. Destructive? Yes. But alive in a way the narrator had never permitted himself to be. The tragedy Fight Club seems to be building toward isn't that Tyler existed. It's that the narrator could only access that aliveness by convincing himself it was someone else doing it. Now the ending. And this is where the line between confirmation and interpretation matters most. The narrator shoots himself through the cheek, confirmed in the film, in a symbolic act of confronting his own constructed identity directly. Tyler disappears. The buildings come down. Project Mayhem completes itself even without Tyler present to direct it. And the narrator stands at the window, holding Marla's hand, watching the skyline collapse. Most people read this as resolution. The destructive force is gone. The man is present. He's with someone real. But the film's final moments include something worth noting carefully. A brief subliminal insert, a callback to the same filmmaking technique used earlier to embed single frames into the narrator's insomniac sequences. It's there for just a moment before the credits. Whether Fincher intended it as a suggestion that the narrator's internal architecture hasn't fully resolved, or as a final stylistic signature consistent with the film's visual language throughout, it resists clean interpretation. What it can reasonably be read as suggesting is that you cannot shoot the parts of yourself you're afraid of and simply walk away whole. Whatever gave rise to Tyler, the emptiness, the hunger, the unmet needs, those didn't originate from nowhere. And the film implies, without confirming, that they didn't entirely disappear either. So what is Fight Club actually about? Not masculinity in crisis. Not anti-consumerism. Not even dissociative identity disorder as a clinical portrait. It can be read as being about the cost of performing a self you don't believe in for long enough. The narrator didn't just lose his identity. He may never have had one that was genuinely his. He assembled himself from catalogs and corporate structures and other people's definitions of what a man should be. And when that assembly finally proved hollow, when he couldn't sleep, couldn't feel, couldn't maintain the performance for one more day, his mind built someone who could feel everything he'd forbidden himself to feel. Tyler Durden isn't simply the villain of this story. Tyler Durden is what the film implies a person can become when suppression runs long enough and deep enough. The biggest secret in Fight Club isn't that Tyler isn't real. It's that the narrator is the one who was never real. Tyler was the first honest thing he ever was, and the whole movie can be read as the story of a man destroying the only version of himself that ever felt alive, because that version was going to destroy everything else. You didn't watch an anarchist thriller. You watched a man go to war with himself and lose both times. Watch it again. You'll see Tyler in the background long before he's supposed to be there. That's when you'll understand. The film was never hiding the secret from you. It was showing you the whole time. You just weren't ready to see it.